All right, so we've been previewing this LSU game all week long. We're going to get my in-depth preview coming up tomorrow's show as well. But let's hear from the rival camp. Got some special guests on today's edition of Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome into it. This is Locked On Vols, your Thursday edition right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every single day. Today's episode, it is brought to you in part by Upside. Download the free Upside app and use promo code LOCKED to get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. That is promo code LOCKED for Upside. Got a fun show coming up here today. So a couple of weeks ago, heading into the Florida game, we crossed over with Brandon Olson. Know you guys are big fans of him. And Chris Gordy of Locked On SEC. Of course, Olson is Locked On Gators. Today, we're going to do the same thing. Chris Gordy's going to run the show. I'm on one side, Locked On Vols. Carolina Fenton is on the other side for Locked On LSU. Chris Gordy's also, I believe, if memory doesn't mistake me, I believe he's a graduate from LSU. So I'm outnumbered today. I got two LSU people, and of course, I'm sticking up for the talk about this matchup. We get the ins and the outs of what makes LSU tick. Brian Kelly in year number one, all that good stuff. Some good conversations here, and we'll learn a lot about LSU here today on a Locktober Thursday edition. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Chris Gordy. He's going to kind of run the show here as we do a little Locked On crossover right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.
Our special guest from Locked On LSU, it is Carolina Fenton, and from Locked On Vols, it is Eric Cain. Guys, how are you? Are you getting excited for this game yet?
I have been excited for this game for all season, honestly, all season. So it feels kind of surreal that it's already here, but I'm very excited, and I think that everyone in each of our respective fan bases feel the same.
Yeah, Caroline, you have the unique perspective of kind of covering both teams, so
yeah.
that's going to be a whole lot of fun for you this week. But it's a big-time game. This has been a game that's circled on every Tennessee fan's calendar for the entire offseason, fun road trip, challenging team, challenging environments. Thank God it's at 11 a.m. kickoff, right? So looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think you are a party of one saying, thank goodness it's an 11 a.m. kickoff.
Well, guys, as we jump into it real quick, we'll start with Caroline. Kind of give me an assessment on where you are on the Tigers right now, sitting at 4-1. Are they about where you thought they'd be? Are they exceeding expectations? Where are you on LSU right now?
Yeah, being 4-1 and 2-0 in the SEC so far, honestly, probably exceeded my expectations. And to be completely fair, I didn't really know what to expect from this LSU team. It was an entire team full of newness, new coaching staff, so many new players, both in the transfer portal and, true freshmen coming in this 2022 recruiting class. So I didn't know what to expect, but all I wanted was, can Brian Kelly at least build a solid foundation to continue to build off of? Can we at least show signs of progress? Can we at least show signs that Brian Kelly, that was brought in to kind of clean up this program and to discipline this program, can we see signs of that? And I think so far, we have seen that. I think so far we have seen that Brian Kelly is starting to build a really solid foundation, and wins over Auburn and Mississippi State, albeit maybe not the prettiest wins, they're wins nonetheless. So I think I would say, yes, they have exceeded expectation. And if I could, use one word to describe this LSU program, it's progress. And it's, from Florida State to Auburn, we've seen a lot of progress from this team. And, you have these issues there, of course, issues arising in the passing game, some discipline issues in terms of penalties. But I would say overall, week over week over week, this team has gotten better, and this team has built confidence. So confidence in this team and confidence in Brian Kelly so far, I would say, so good.
Eric, kind of same question. Obviously, you guys get the not much needed bye week, as a lot of people are like, very early for a bye week. But as the Vols sit here undefeated, are they right about where you thought they'd be at this point?
Well, you joke, but I mean, Hendon Hooker got banged up a little bit against Florida. Of course, Cedric Tillman's out, Dylan Sampson, Warren Burrell, D. Williams. I mean, this team was pretty beat up there for 4 games into the season. If I said that I thought Tennessee would be undefeated right now, I'd be lying to you. I thought Pittsburgh would get them. I thought Florida would get them. One of the 2 games, I thought you would just kind of stub your toe, because that's what Tennessee does typically in the early month of the season. So from that perspective, that's progress here in year number 2 for Josh Heupel. You're going on the road and you're finding a way to win in overtime against Pittsburgh. You're staying at home and staging off a really talented Florida team that, of course, had the game of their lives, and Anthony Richardson had the game of their lives, but a team that you were just better than, but you got the monkey off your back. And so from that perspective, I think Tennessee has been, progressing in year number 2 with Josh Heupel. This offense is about where I thought it was. I didn't think Hendon Hooker would be, he's better than he was last year through 4 games. We'll have to see if it keeps up. I don't know if I was expecting that, but knew this offense would be good. Defensively, we'll see. You're just 4 games in. Of course, it's not been too great so far. How big of a step can you take? I'll be intrigued to see, but it's a good start for Tennessee, no doubt about it. They're off and running.
As we start to kind of count down to the game happening this weekend, guys, Caroline, let's start with you. What's the biggest storyline, I guess, for LSU this week? Is it Jaden Daniels? I know he was a little banged up. Ryan Kelly says he should still be good to go. What's the biggest storyline for LSU in your opinion this week?
I would say it's Jaden Daniels, and it's beyond just the injury. Of course, against Auburn, he had kind of a kneecap to kneecap collision. And Brian Kelly said in his press conference earlier this week that he was going to be 100%, that he was fine, that it was just some pain that he couldn't work through in the middle of the game, but it wasn't a long-lasting injury. So that's good. So Jaden Daniels, per Brian Kelly, is 100%. But I think it's Jaden Daniels going beyond the injury because we didn't see much from Jaden Daniels against Auburn. Jaden Daniels passed for 80 yards against Auburn. 80. And LSU was able to get a win. And of course, that offense was really carried by the running game. And that game was really carried by the defensive line, being able to create plays and create turnovers. So the question here with Jaden Daniels, and the biggest story with LSU, is can Jaden Daniels take advantage of a Tennessee secondary that has proven to give up a whole lot of passing yards? I mean, you look at Anthony Richardson against this Tennessee secondary, who was able to throw for more than 450 yards, and he hadn't thrown for more than 200 in the 3 games leading up to that game. So I think the question is, can Jaden Daniels take some of those risks and be a little bit riskier? This is what Brian Kelly said. He said, don't be reckless, but be risky and take advantage of this really talented LSU wide receiver room. Maybe you have some tight windows and maybe you're going to have to throw into traffic, but can Jaden Daniels overcome that and make those throws and take advantage of these pass catchers? Can LSU use the passing game to supplement the run game to be able to take advantage of what I think to be Tennessee's biggest weakness, and that's the defense and specifically the secondary? So that's the biggest question going into it, and the biggest story is, can this LSU passing game continue to evolve?
Eric, same question for you. Biggest storyline for the Vols going into this one?
Yeah, going into the Florida game, it was the injury situation. Tennessee's a bit healthier now, obviously getting the bye week and all that. I would still be surprised at this point in the week. Things can change. I would still be surprised if you see Cedric Tillman out there. I think Alabama would be the more likely game of the two. So we will see. Obviously, Tennessee got by Florida in the passing game, and Hendon Hooker was fantastic without Cedric Tillman, but you want him out there. But I think the biggest storyline kind of on Jaden Daniels as well for Tennessee, it's how are you going to defend him? You've seen this Tennessee defense go 2 different routes in a span of 3 different games. Against Keaton Slovis in Pittsburgh, this defense was ultra aggressive, blitzes from the second and from the third level, playing different games up front and just getting after it. Against Anthony Richardson in Florida, you rush 4, you rush 5, you drop 7, you drop 8, and you gave a 10-yard cushion. What's this defense going to be? In my opinion, this defense isn't fantastic. The secondary, as Caroline was just pointing out, is not fantastic. It's not going to win you any awards here. Just do what you do best, play to your strengths, get after it. If you give up a big play, you might have given that up in 2 or 3 plays after that anyway, right? So it's difficult because of a mobile quarterback. I understand that. But I would pressure Jaden Daniels much like you did in the Akron game, much like you did in the Pittsburgh game earlier this season. So that's what I'm looking out for. What's this defense going to be playing like? Aggressive, or is it going to be playing conservative? I think it needs to be more aggressive.
All right, guys, hold it right there. When we return, we're going to get into the key matchups to watch for in this one in just a second. Thank you, guys, for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. I want to remind you about our friends over at Upside. From cringing at the pump to getting an eye-popping check at your favorite restaurant, inflation is hitting us all where it hurts, and it really hurts. That's why we started using Upside. The Upside app, it's an incredible app for anyone who buys gas, groceries, likes to dine out. With every purchase, we are earning cash back thanks to Upside. To get started, just download the free Upside app. Use our promo code LOCKED, LOCKED. That's going to get you $5 or more cash back. on your first purchase of $10 or more. Next, you claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. You check in at the business. You pay as usual with your credit or debit card, and you get paid. Compared to credit card rewards or loyalty programs, you can earn 3 times more cash back with Upside. Download the free Upside app right now. Use our promo code LOCKED. That'll get you $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. That's $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. Use the promo code LOCKED on the free Upside app. Roll along here, Locked On SEC. Continue our crossover edition with Eric Cain and Carolina Fenton. And guys, as we start to get a little bit more into this game, we discussed the key matchups to watch for in this one. And Caroline, I know you kind of hit on it a little bit, but what's the key matchup in your mind that you're looking for in this one?
I think that this is going to be the biggest test for this LSU defense so far. And that's saying a lot, seeing as though LSU has already played and beaten Mississippi State. And that's an incredibly high-powered offense. It's a difficult offense to defend. But I still am going to say that this is going to be the most difficult matchup for LSU's defense. So that's what I'm looking for, is LSU's defense versus Tennessee's super quick, super high-powered offense. And I'll go even as further to say LSU's defensive line against this Tennessee offensive line, and to see how LSU can get pressure on Hendon Hooker. That's really, I always, before every game, I say my 3 ways that LSU could win and my 3 ways that LSU could lose. Little peek behind the curtain of what's coming up next on Locked On LSU. One of my keys to this game is getting pressure on Hendon Hooker. And this Tennessee offensive line has done a pretty good job of protecting Hendon Hooker. Is that the offensive line, or is that just Hendon Hooker being able to extend plays with his legs and being athletic? I'm not sure, but either way, Hendon Hooker has been protected. So it's how can this LSU defensive line keep up first with this Tennessee offense, because that's not an easy feat. It's a very, very quick offense. So how can LSU's defense keep up, and how can they stop it? I mean, Tennessee puts up massive yards, massive points, and I don't think that's any sort of secret here. So how can LSU's defense stop it? LSU's defense has undoubtedly been this team's strongest position group. I believe that the LSU defense single-handedly beat Auburn because they were able to get LSU on the board. They were able to get momentum when LSU needed it. And they were able to make stops when LSU absolutely had to make stops against Auburn, especially, most notably, an interception when Auburn was driving into LSU territory. So I look at this. How can LSU's defense create turnovers and give LSU's offense an opportunity to score more points? And how can LSU's defense stop Tennessee's offense from scoring points and slow it down? So that's what I'm looking for, is LSU offense, Tennessee defense, and more specifically, this LSU defensive line that's proven to be a force so far this season.
Yeah, Bijo Jalari and Ali Gay, they've been having a great season. Eric, in your
even
opinion,
freshman, sorry, excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt, but even freshman Harold Perkins, the way that Matt House has been so creative to use that true freshman in so many different areas is going to be fun to watch as well. Yeah,
big interception last week at Auburn. Eric, in your opinion, what's the key matchup to watch for in this one?
Yeah, I got a couple actually, and kind of picking up where Carolina was there. I think it's Tennessee's offense. I think it's Tennessee's passing game with Hendon Hooker, who, again, it's, for Tennessee, it's 4 games in, so I understand it's fun and it's good for people like us, but the Heisman number conversation, all that, it's like, well, let's wait till you get into 6 or 7 games in the conference schedule, right? But still, playing an extremely, extremely high level. But going up against this LSU defense, which, number one, is good. Number two, the secondary, as you guys know, I mean, Gordy, I counted, 5 transfers in the defensive backfield this offseason? Is that correct? It's pretty mind-blowing. You're taking 2 safeties from Arkansas, taking 3 corners, 1 from Ohio State, 1 from Oklahoma State, 1 from Louisiana. All of those guys played a ton, and they've all kind of been working in and out of the lineup. I know Banks got injured the other night, the transfer from Ohio State, but they've all been kind of working in there alongside Jay Ward, who's been at LSU for a while, just trying to learn how to play against play with one another, gelling back there and all that. This will be the 6th game that those guys have played with one another, and now you're going up against this offense with Hendon Hooker. Now, I hear you with Mississippi State. I think Will Rogers is the most, one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC that nobody talks about ever, but it's different. A lot of his success is, from 7 to 10 yards on passing attempts, when Hendon is going to chuck it down the field a little bit. So it's going to be a little bit different. I'm so intrigued to see what Hendon's passing game, with or without Cedric Tillman, looks like against that experienced, albeit not together, secondary of LSU. Another one is, B.J. Ojulari, the one-time Tennessee commit. I've said that about 100 times this week. Man, he is a good player. And, Gerald Mincey, he's going to have his work cut out for him. Darnell Wright potentially at times going to have his work cut out for him. Jabari Small, Jalen Wright, the running backs, going to have to get up there, keeping the tight end, six-man protections with the Princeton fan, Jacob Warren. Tennessee's got to have all eyes on B.J. Ojulari, and that's going to affect the way they block him, but potentially it could open up something on the other side for Gay as well. And so, we'll see. Those are a couple of ones I'm looking at, and, of course, Jabari Small got going on the ground in the second half against Florida. That was good to see. This LSU defense, the front seven, very stout against the run. Tennessee is going to have to run it to win this football game, and it can't just be Hendon Hooker. So those are a couple ones I'm looking out for. I think it's going to be a really, really, really good game.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And again, as Caroline hinted at earlier, it's an 11 a.m. kick. The LSU fans weren't that excited about it, but since then it's been announced that it's officially a sold-out game. So, look, it's a big one. I don't want to downplay it too much, but I will say this is one, if you're Tennessee, you can lose and still have everything in front of you want to play for. And kind of the same thing with LSU in that, if you're a West team, it's always good to lose to an East team and vice versa. That said, though, it's still a big game. That LSU first opportunity for Brian Kelly to put a marquee win against a ranked opponent in Tiger Stadium. And for Tennessee, hey, look, all the hype and the buildup of the offseason, let's go beat a rebuilding LSU team.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I look at this game kind of like I think LSU is a lot more talented than Pittsburgh was, but I look at this game much like a game against Pittsburgh. Like in year two, what you've already done, the progress you've already made, just go get this win. Like, go on the road. I understand it's going to be a sold-out crowd. I understand it's going to be a hostile environment. I think the early kick plays into Tennessee's favor for sure, though it's not going to be a huge difference. It's much better than playing at LSU at 3:30 or 8 o'clock at night for sure. But just go get that win, right? I mean, LSU, there's talent on that roster. There's some depth in areas where it's not developed yet. Obviously, when you had about 40 scholarship players at the end of the season last year, I mean, that, Kelly's done a nice job of getting this team to buy in already. But this is a game to where if you don't come and ready to play, you can get your ass kicked. But if you come and you play the way Tennessee's offense can play, you should be able to win this football game despite what that defense does on the other side. Just play some complimentary football. So, again, I think this is the game of the week in the SEC, and I know A&M and Alabama are playing, but I truly do think this is the game of the week in the conference.
And I'll go even further to say I think this is a really interesting test for two teams that haven't really had a whole lot of hype. So this game for both teams is the most hyped up game so far this season. And that's saying a lot, saying as though I didn't have any service in the city of Knoxville the entire weekend of the Florida game. But I think that's different because it was at home and there was so much playing into Tennessee's favor. Now they're on the road in a really rowdy and raucous environment. And I understand people are saying, the 11 a.m. kick plays into Tennessee's favor. I don't really know how much it does, to be completely honest with you. In a sold-out crowd, it's going to be loud, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on, especially Hendon Hooker, moving to a silent cadence and just being in a new environment. This team has never played it in Tiger Stadium before. And I think that this is the most hyped up game for LSU probably since Texas A&M in 2019, probably since the national championship in 2019. And there's not a lot of turnover from those teams. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how these two teams handle such a hyped up game for two different reasons, but handle all of the pressure and all of the eyes that I know inevitably are going to be on this game. LSU, a young team, a fairly inexperienced team, at least together, and Tennessee, a team that's finding success, a whole lot of success and a whole lot of hype for the first time in a while.
It's a good point, because as much hype as there was for the Florida game, the Vols were a big favorite in that game. And so this is their closest, in terms of the point spread and those folks in the desert, closest match for Tennessee so far this year. Coming up next, we are going to jump into our score predictions and what needs to happen for these teams to win here on Locked On SEC. Continue on here, Locked On SEC crossover edition, talking with Carolina Fenton of Locked On LSU and Cain of Locked On Vols. And guys, the moment of truth. Caroline, we'll start with you. Score predictions. What needs to happen for LSU to win this game?
In order for LSU to win this game, they have to get pressure on Hendon Hooker, and they have to force turnovers. And also on the offensive side of the ball, Jaden Daniels needs to have his best day passing. He needs to throw the ball. He needs to make some of those riskier throws. He needs to move the ball downfield. And while those short dink and dunk 3, 4, 5 yard, pitches to the tight end or pitches to the running back are important, that moves the sticks, I think Jaden Daniels needs to be a little bit more snazzy and a little bit more risky on the offensive side of the ball. I think if LSU's offense can find this new dynamic of the passing game and the defense can continue to put pressure on Tennessee, I think they'll have a good day. But overall, if I'm going to make my official prediction, I do think that this Tennessee team has way too much consistency week over week, because Tennessee has found an identity. And I do think consistency year over year. Same head coach, same coordinators, not a lot of shakeup in the coaching position, same quarterback, a very similar personnel than they had last year. This team just has too much experience together, and this team has found its identity and is very hard in its identity, and LSU is still trying to find its identity. So I think overall, Tennessee just might be too much for LSU. So I would say Tennessee probably by a field goal, but if LSU is able to add that extra layer of a passing game, I think it could be anyone's ballgame.
Eric, score prediction, what needs to happen for the Vols to win?
I think if Tennessee can get up on LSU like Auburn did, like Mississippi State did, I think Tennessee can put them away. I think Tennessee can bury them. And yes, I understand Tennessee had a 17-point lead over Florida in the fourth quarter. So you truly never know with the secondary. I get that. But LSU's shown great resiliency. And that's why I say, it's really impressive. I did not see this buy-in coming, because that's what it looks like from the outside. It looks like buy-in. And I did not see that coming really when Brian Kelly took the job, and especially after week 1. But credit Kelly and his staff. He's got this team to buy in, but off to some slow starts, especially offensively. And so I think Tennessee can take advantage of that. Like Caroline was saying, an identity. They've never seen this tempo before. I think Tennessee can really utilize that, especially in the second half, with or without Cedric Tillman. So I like Tennessee in this one. If you can just play some complimentary football, I don't expect this defense to be as bad as it was against Florida. I don't expect this defense to be, tops of the SEC week in and week out. I just think that if you can play some complimentary football, and this week in particular, keep Daniels in the tackle box. Don't let him evade. The defensive ends have got to have a good game and be aggressive, rush the quarterback, much like you did against Pittsburgh. I think Tennessee can come out with a win. So I like the Vols in this one. It's not going to be easy. If you don't come ready to play, you can get beat. But I do like the Vols because I trust the quarterback way more. I trust the offense. I like 34-30. Hello over just by the hook.
Yeah, I like it a little bit more low scoring. LSU's defense has done a good job of limiting teams. Obviously, they held Will Rogers to just 214 yards passing, and look at what they did to Auburn. Shut out Auburn in the second half this past week. So I'm thinking it's more like a 31-24 Tennessee game where offense still does their thing. But here's my question for you, Eric. You used the word complimentary football. What's up with the Tennessee run game? Because Jabari Small has had issues there, not as balanced as they like to be. And if I'm a Vol fan, that would concern me going into this game.
Yeah, no doubt. Josh Heupel always says for this staff and for this program to accomplish what it needs to and for them to be where they want to be, at the likes of it clicking like it did at UCF or at Missouri at points in times, Tennessee has got to run the football. It's got to run the football effectively. That opens up everything. That's football 101, right? So, Jabari Small, he had one 40-yard run against Florida in the third quarter. That really got him going. Then he was getting about 4 or 5 yards a pop from there on out. He finished with almost 100 yards against Florida. Jalen Wright, I think, has ran his tail off this year, but he's put the ball on the ground just a little bit, which has not been fantastic. So it's been a little underwhelming for sure. Tennessee does not have a bigger back, and I think that they're missing that certainly in some short yardage situations. So I think Hendon Hooker, a big part of the offense is his running ability, but it's so scary towards the end of that because he takes a lot of unnecessary hits, and so you don't want it to be what you rely on solely for the run game, but obviously it is a big part of what Tennessee does. So we'll have to see. They're averaging over 200 yards a game, which is good, and they did that against Florida, which is good, an SEC opponent, but it's going to be a challenge against that front seven from LSU that is really, really good against the run.
Caroline, as we kind of start to close things out here, both these quarterbacks, 0 interceptions on the season. They're the only 2 quarterbacks in the SEC who have yet to throw an interception. Does that change on either side this weekend?
I do think it does for Jaden Daniels. And I say that not as a knock on Jaden Daniels, but I can't sit up here and say, hey, Jaden Daniels, throw the ball more, make riskier throws, and then knock Jaden Daniels for throwing interceptions. Brian Kelly even said in his press conference, he was like, interceptions are going to come if you be a little bit more risky, but it's also the difference between reckless and being risky. Interceptions are going to come when you throw the ball more. That's why I do think the stat line of Hendon Hooker 0 interceptions versus Jaden Daniels interceptions is just a little bit more impressive because Hendon Hooker throws the ball more and Hendon Hooker throws the ball downfield. Jaden Daniels, on the other hand, and rightfully so, he's still trying to get used to this offensive line. Of course, it's an offensive line that has only been consistent week over week from week 3 to week 4 from Mississippi State to New Mexico. So this offensive line is still trying to figure itself out. Jaden Daniels is trying to figure out the offensive line, is trying to build that chemistry with the rest of the offense. So it's understandable that he probably defers to the run more than maybe another quarterback, 1, because he's very good at it, and 2, because this offense is still trying to build chemistry. And you've seen so many times, there might be an open Cain Booty 10, 15 yards downfield, but instead Jaden Daniels tucks the ball and runs it himself. Is that because he doesn't trust Cain Booty? Is that because he doesn't trust himself? Is that because he doesn't trust the offensive line? I don't know the answer to that, but he's not making those risky throws. So I think that's why that might change this week, because I think Brian Kelly is going to put the pressure on Jaden Daniels to throw the ball more. Now, is that going to be, ultimately how LSU loses this game? Is turnovers? I don't know the answer to that question. If Jaden Daniels is able to throw for 400 yards and a single interception, then great. I'll take that all day long. So I think that may change this week with Jaden Daniels, just because this coaching staff is going to ask more from him in the passing game. And Eric mentions the slow starts for LSU. That has bugged me all season long, that, I never get too nervous in the first half because I know that there's going to be a new team in the second half. And Eric is 100% correct. If LSU is not able to get things moving quickly and come out of the gates and start moving the ball downfield and start putting points on the board in the first quarter, at least, it's going to be hard for them to kind of scratch and claw their way back in the second half. But we've seen them do it against Auburn, 17-0 deficit, and they were able to come back and win.
Yeah, and LSU first half against Florida State, 3 points. First half against Mississippi State, 7 points. So if Tennessee jumps up to a 21-0 lead, hey, don't panic, LSU fans. You got them right where you want them. So we'll see.
I'm not going to say I'm not going to sweat, but I'm not going to be as stressed as I probably would have been in the past.
Eric, closing thoughts as we wrap up?
Well, first and foremost, I'm just you kind of hit on it there, and we don't have to discuss it, but the whole Cain Boudet thing, one of the biggest mysteries in college football this year. Like, what is going on there? I mean, one of the best players in the country, in my opinion. You look at the stat sheet, it's like, what is going on? Has this guy barely played? I know he's missed a game, but I think this is a big game for both programs, for what both coaching staffs are trying to accomplish. Kelly, and you're number 1. If LSU were to get this win, talk about a statement win in year 1, where you weren't picked to win a whole lot of games, or really kind of get up there in the SEC. For Tennessee, again, this is a huge win on the road, traveling to a hostile environment. Just rely on your strengths if you're Tennessee, which is trust your quarterback, let your quarterback go out there and throw the football down the field, and we will see what happens. I'll be there. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the environment's like, and I know a lot of Tennessee fans are going to be making that trip, heading down to Beale Street on a Friday night, heading down to see Jordan Matthews play on a Thursday night as well. So I think it'll be a fun road trip. So we will see. Tennessee obviously needs to get off to a good start.
Beale Street's in Memphis, Bourbon Street in New Orleans.
Bourbon Street.
So, it's fine. It's same thing. It's
almost had a perfect show. Almost.
It's alcohol and music. It's all the same thing.
Yeah, after a few drinks on bourbon, you might not know where you are either.
There you go.
Thank you guys again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day if you're listening to Locked On SEC. And, of course, make Locked On LSU and Locked On Vols your second listen if it's not already your first listen. Great opportunity to check out Caroline talking all things LSU and Eric talking all things Vols. Guys, thanks so much for joining us, and should be a heck of a game. Enjoy the game, everybody, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.
Thanks, man.
All right, thanks.
How much fun was that? Again, that was a whole lot of fun. Big thanks to Chris Gordy of Locked On SEC. Big thanks to Carolina Fenton of Locked On LSU for being willing to record early in the morning and get this thing done, and had a whole lot of fun. Good conversation. Again, learned a lot. And if you need another listen prior to kickoff, I know it's an early kickoff, 11 a.m. local time, noon Eastern. If you need another listen for more information about this Tennessee LSU game, make Locked On LSU, make Locked On SEC your second listen, right behind Locked On Vols, which is your first listen each and every day. Hey, we are so close to 4K by kickoff. We're going to get there. Let's go ahead and stamp it. Let's finish it off here on a Thursday. Let's get to 4,000 subscribers on YouTube today, Thursday. If we're not there already, let's push through it. Of course, the ultimate goal is 5,000 subscribers on YouTube to Locked On Balls by the end of the football season. So thank you guys so much for your support, and you can always find it anywhere you listen to your podcast, wherever you got a special guest, Boogie Bentley. He'll be back on the show, and I'll give you my keys to victory and a final score prediction as well. A big-time LSU Boogie. That's what you have to. Until then, guys, enjoy the rest of your Thursday, everybody.